Good morning, and let me begin with something that might genuinely challenge what you believe about growing older. For decades, the medical community has advised older adults to slow down, take it easy, and gracefully accept the physical and mental decline that supposedly comes with age. But what if some of the most compelling longevity research from the past decade tells a completely different story? What if the habits that keep you sharp, mobile, and independent at 70, 75, even 85 aren't the ones your doctor mentioned at your last visit, but simple daily routines that most people in your age range have quietly let slip away? I'm Dr. Sophie Hale, and after nearly 2 decades working with patients in the 65 to 85 age range, I've observed something the research is only now beginning to validate. The people who age the best, the ones who still drive, still garden, still remember every detail of a conversation from last week, they share a very specific set of behaviors. Not expensive supplements, not experimental therapies, behaviors. A landmark study from the Stanford Center on Longevity tracked over 4,200 adults between 65 and 90 for 12 years. What they found was remarkable. Those who maintained 4 or more of these specific daily habits were 61% less likely to experience what researchers call accelerated functional decline, the rapid loss of independence that sends far too many older adults into assisted living years before it's necessary. 61%. That is not a marginal improvement. That is the difference between living life on your own terms and living it on someone else's schedule. Now, I want to tease something before we go further. The number one habit on this list, the most powerful of all 6, is something almost no one talks about. It has nothing to do with diet or exercise in any traditional sense. Most cardiologists never mention it. But research from Johns Hopkins and the University of Edinburgh suggests it may be the single greatest predictor of cognitive and physical independence after age 65. So please stay with me until the end, because that one could genuinely change how you approach the coming decades. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Drop your age in the comments below, whether you're 66, 72, 79, or somewhere else entirely. And tell me which of these habits you think you already have. I read every single comment on this channel, every one. This community means everything to me, and your story matters. So leave it down there and let's have a real conversation. Now, let's count down from number 6 to number 1, starting with something that sounds almost too simple to be life-changing, but the science behind it is anything but simple. Number 6, drinking water strategically, not just casually. Here is what most people get wrong about hydration after 65. They assume it works the same way it did at 45. It absolutely does not. After age 65, your kidneys lose roughly 35 to 40% of their filtering efficiency. Your body's thirst signals become significantly blunted, meaning you genuinely stop feeling thirsty even when you're meaningfully dehydrated. And your blood's ability to carry oxygen and nutrients to your muscles and brain drops measurably with every percentage point of fluid you lose. Think of your bloodstream as a river delivery system. When that river runs low, deliveries slow down, and the whole operation starts to falter. That is exactly what chronic mild dehydration does to the aging body. Research from the European Journal of Nutrition involving 3,500 adults over 65 found that those who maintained consistent daily hydration above 1.8 liters showed a 38% lower rate of urinary tract infections, a 29% reduction in falls, because dehydration dramatically impairs balance and reaction time, and significantly better scores on short-term memory tests. The brain is approximately 75% water. Even a 2% drop causes measurable cognitive impairment at any age, but after 65, that effect is amplified because your brain's compensatory mechanisms are already working harder just to maintain baseline function. Here is what makes this a habit for truly exceptional adults. They don't just drink water when they remember. They drink 12 to 16 ounces first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else. Your body loses fluid overnight through breathing and perspiration, and after 65, your overnight fluid deficit is typically 30% higher than it was in midlife. Then they drink a small glass with every meal and one mid-afternoon. The synergy tip: pair your morning water with a pinch of high-quality sea salt or an electrolyte tablet, because after 65, your kidneys have more difficulty retaining sodium, and without it, plain water passes through your system without being fully absorbed into your cells where it's actually needed. Margaret, 81, from Boise, Idaho, came to me complaining of afternoon brain fog, dizziness when standing, and what she described as feeling like her thinking was wrapped in cotton. She wasn't dehydrated in any dramatic sense. She was chronically, mildly underhydrated. We made one change: strategic hydration, timed correctly, with a small electrolyte addition in the morning. 6 weeks later, she told me it felt like someone had cleaned the windows of her mind. One habit. Life-changing results. Number 5. Resistance-based movement, at least twice per week. I need to be clear about something I see misunderstood constantly. When I say resistance movement, I am not talking about going to a gym and lifting heavy weights. I'm talking about any movement that asks your muscles to work against a force: a resistance band, a light dumbbell, a wall push-up, or even carrying groceries with intention. The distinction matters enormously after 65 because of a process called anabolic resistance. Anabolic resistance is the reduced ability of aging muscle cells to respond to protein and exercise stimulation. In practical terms, it means that after 65, your body needs more intentional resistance to maintain the same muscle mass that a 50-year-old maintains with half the effort. Your muscles aren't lazy. They're simply harder to reach, and if you don't reach them consistently, they begin a process called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, which the Mayo Clinic has linked to a 47% increased risk of falls and a 53% higher likelihood of being unable to perform basic daily tasks within 5 years. A study from Tufts University followed adults aged 65 to 85 who began twice-weekly resistance training. After just 10 weeks, participants showed an average 37% increase in leg strength, a 28% improvement in balance scores, and a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity, which directly affects energy, inflammation, and cognitive function. You are not just building muscle, you are rebuilding the energy infrastructure of your entire body. The practical prescription: 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes each, focusing on the large muscle groups, legs, hips, and back. Resistance bands are ideal because they provide progressive resistance without joint impact. The synergy tip: perform your resistance session within 30 minutes of consuming 25 to 30 grams of protein, because after 65, the anabolic window, the period during which your muscles most efficiently absorb protein, is shorter and less forgiving than in younger adults. Timing is not optional at your age, it is essential. Number 4. Maintaining a consistent, purposeful sleep schedule. Before I continue, if this is giving you value, if you're learning something you wish someone had told you years ago, take 1 second and click that subscribe button. And if you know someone between 65 and 85 who deserves to hear this, share this video with them today. This channel exists for one reason: to give older adults the science-backed truth that far too many medical appointments never have time to cover. Now back to sleep, because this is far more complex than simply going to bed early. After 65, your circadian rhythm begins to shift and weaken. Your brain produces roughly 70% less melatonin than it did at age 30. Your slow-wave sleep, the deepest and most physically restorative phase, decreases by up to 80% from your 30s. This is the phase during which human growth hormone is released, the hormone responsible for cellular repair, immune function, and muscle maintenance. And a study from UC Berkeley found that adults over 65 with disrupted sleep patterns showed a 68% higher accumulation of amyloid plaques in the brain, the same plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. The adults who do this exceptionally well don't just sleep more. They sleep consistently. They go to bed within the same 30-minute window every night. They wake at the same time every morning, including weekends. They keep their bedroom cool, between 65 and 68 degrees, because body temperature regulation during sleep becomes less efficient with age. And they avoid screens for 60 minutes before bed, not just because of blue light, but because mental stimulation keeps the prefrontal cortex active in ways that delay sleep onset by an average of 47 minutes in adults over 65, according to Harvard Medical School. The synergy tip: Pair your consistent sleep schedule with 10 minutes of slow diaphragmatic breathing before bed. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and repair mode, and reduces nighttime cortisol by up to 22%, making it significantly easier to reach and sustain slow-wave sleep. Number 3. Eating protein in a deliberate, distributed pattern. This is where I see the most dangerous misconception among older adults, and it genuinely concerns me. The idea that you need less protein as you age is not just wrong, it may be one of the most harmful pieces of nutritional folklore ever passed down. The truth is the exact opposite. After 65, due to anabolic resistance, your body requires 50 to 75% more dietary protein per pound of body weight than a healthy 30-year-old to achieve the same muscle maintenance effect. Yet most older adults I see are eating half the protein they need, often because appetite decreases with age, and high-carbohydrate foods feel easier to prepare. Research in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, involving over 2,700 adults aged 65 to 85, found that those who consumed at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, distributed across 3 or more meals, maintained significantly more muscle mass, had 41% lower rates of hospitalization from fall-related injuries, and showed markedly better immune response to common infections. Think of protein as the bricks your body uses to rebuild itself overnight. Without enough bricks, the reconstruction is incomplete, and over months and years, the structural deficit becomes catastrophic. The practical approach: aim for 25 to 35 grams of protein at each of your 3 main meals. This is approximately 4 to 5 ounces of chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, or legumes per meal. Distribution matters because aging muscles can only utilize about 35 to 40 grams of protein per sitting. Beyond that, the excess is burned for energy rather than used for repair. Spreading it out makes every gram count. The synergy tip: pair your protein meals with vitamin C, because it's essential for collagen synthesis, which works in tandem with dietary protein to maintain not just muscle, but the connective tissue, joint cartilage, and skin integrity that collectively determine how well your body holds itself together. James, 78, from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to me after his daughter noticed he'd lost nearly 18 pounds of what his previous doctor called normal age-related weight loss. It was not normal. He was losing muscle, not fat. His grip strength, a powerful predictor of longevity, had dropped to the bottom 15th percentile for his age. We restructured his meals around deliberate protein intake. 12 weeks later, he had regained 11 pounds of lean mass. His grip strength was back in the 60th percentile, and he told me, with unmistakable pride, that he had carried all of his own groceries from the car for the first time in 2 years. Number 2. Daily intentional social engagement. I told you one of the top 2 items would surprise you. This is the one, because it sounds too soft, too emotional to be a medical recommendation. But the research on social engagement and longevity is not soft. It is some of the hardest, most replicable science in modern gerontology. A study from Brigham Young University analyzing data from over 300,000 adults found that social isolation carried a mortality risk equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Let me say that again. Being chronically socially isolated is as dangerous to your lifespan as smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. For adults over 65, the National Institute on Aging has found that loneliness accelerates cognitive decline by up to 64%, increases the risk of dementia by 41%, and dramatically elevates inflammatory markers that directly damage cardiovascular tissue, immune function, and neural connectivity. The physiological reason is this: meaningful social interaction triggers the release of oxytocin, which suppresses cortisol, reduces inflammation, and activates the prefrontal cortex in ways that keep neural pathways dense and active. When those neurons go quiet for weeks, they begin to prune. And after 65, neuroplasticity has already decreased, making unused pathways far harder to restore. The prescription is not complicated, but it must be intentional. Aim for at least one meaningful in-person social interaction every single day. A phone call counts if it's genuinely engaged. A community group, a faith gathering, a walking partner, a regular lunch with a neighbor. What does not count is passive social presence. You must be actively thinking, responding, laughing, disagreeing, sharing. That engagement is the stimulus that keeps your brain structurally intact. The synergy tip: pair social engagement with physical movement whenever possible. Research from the University of British Columbia shows that combining social interaction with even light physical activity produces a synergistic effect on BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that is significantly greater than either behavior alone. BDNF is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. Dorothy, 83, from Charleston, South Carolina, lost her husband of 54 years and withdrew almost completely from social life. Her daughter brought her to see me 8 months later. Cognitively, she had declined measurably in less than a year. We didn't change her medications. We built her a social schedule, a weekly book club, a daily 20-minute phone call with rotating friends and family, and twice-weekly volunteer shifts at her local library. 8 months after that, her cognitive scores had returned to near baseline. Her inflammation markers had dropped. Her daughter told me she seemed like herself again. Social engagement is not a luxury at this stage of life. It is a biological necessity. And now, number 1, the habit that fewer than 12% of adults over 65 maintain consistently, and which Johns Hopkins researchers have called the most underutilized longevity intervention available without a prescription. Number 1, daily purposeful cognitive challenge. Not crossword puzzles, not passive reading, though both have value. I'm talking about something more specific, more demanding, and more transformative. The daily practice of learning something genuinely new. A skill, a language, a musical instrument, a new form of creative expression that forces your brain into a state of productive discomfort. Here is why this is number 1. After 65, your brain begins to preferentially rely on established neural pathways. It becomes extraordinarily efficient at doing familiar things and extraordinarily reluctant to build new ones. This is not a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism, an aging brain conserving metabolic energy by favoring the familiar. But this preference is also the mechanism by which cognitive reserve is depleted. Cognitive reserve is your brain's resilience buffer, its ability to compensate for age-related structural changes and still function at a high level. Think of it like the RAM in a computer. The more you have, the more damage your brain can absorb before you start experiencing symptoms. Research from the University of Edinburgh's Lothian birth cohort study, following over 1,000 adults from their 60s into their late 80s, found that those who engaged in novel, challenging cognitive activities for at least 30 minutes per day showed a 47% slower rate of brain atrophy on MRI scans, maintained significantly better processing speed and episodic memory, and were 38% less likely to receive a dementia diagnosis over the following decade. The mechanism is neuroplasticity. While it declines with age, it never disappears entirely. Your brain retains the capacity for meaningful structural change well into your 80s, but only if it's given sufficient stimulus. Novel learning is that stimulus. Learning a new language activates 5 distinct regions of the brain simultaneously and has been shown to delay dementia onset by an average of 4.5 years. Learning a musical instrument engages fine motor control, auditory processing, memory, and emotional regulation in a coordinated way that no other activity replicates. Even learning to cook a new cuisine from scratch provides meaningful cognitive challenge. The practical approach: choose one genuinely new skill every 3 to 4 months and spend at least 20 to 30 minutes per day actively learning it. The key word is actively. Watching someone else play guitar on YouTube is not learning guitar. Sitting with an instrument in your hands and struggling through a chord progression is. The struggle, that productive discomfort, is where the neurological benefit lives. It is the cognitive equivalent of resistance training. The resistance is the point. Robert, 79, from Portland, Oregon, retired from a 40-year career as a civil engineer and spent the first 3 years of retirement doing very little that challenged his mind. He came to me after noticing increasing difficulty recalling names and following complex conversations. I gave him one prescription: pick something he had always wanted to learn and do it every day. He chose oil painting, something he had never done in his life. He was terrible at first, and he'll tell you that himself. 18 months later, he had completed 23 paintings, joined a local art group, which addressed habit number 2 simultaneously, and his follow-up cognitive assessments showed improvement in 3 of 5 measured domains. Improvement, not maintenance. Improvement at 79. The synergy tip: Pair your daily cognitive challenge with omega-3 fatty acid intake, specifically DHA found in fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines. DHA is the primary structural fat of brain cell membranes, and research from the Framingham Heart Study shows that adults with higher DHA levels demonstrate significantly better neuroplasticity responses to cognitive training. It is the fertilizer beneath the seed. All scientific references for everything discussed here are available in the description below. I encourage you to read them, share them with your doctor, and have an informed conversation about what is right for your specific situation. Now let me close with something I say from the heart, because I have sat across from enough patients in the 65 to 85 age range to know that this period of life is too often treated as a countdown rather than a continuation. It is not. The research I've shared today points to something medicine is only beginning to fully appreciate, that the body and mind at 65, at 75, at 85 retain a remarkable, stubborn capacity for resilience. The 6 habits we discussed, strategic hydration, resistance movement, consistent sleep, deliberate protein intake, daily social connection, and purposeful cognitive challenge, are not about turning back the clock. They are about making the most extraordinary possible use of the time the clock still has. If you're not subscribed yet, please do that now. Every week I bring you research-backed, age-specific health information that I genuinely believe can add years of quality to your life. Click subscribe and make sure the notification bell is on so you never miss a video. And now I want to hear from you. Leave your age in the comments and tell me which of these 6 habits you feel strongest in right now, and which one you want to build. I'll be reading every response. This community is one of the most engaged and thoughtful I have ever been part of, and that is entirely because of you. I'll see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself, because you are worth the effort.